Welcome to a very, very big episode here on the Cross Border Interviews. Today, we are releasing our 800th episode of the Cross Border Interviews, the online show where we dive into the insights of municipal political leaders from across Canada. Our mission on this show has always been the same. It is to shine a light on the dedicated individuals who day in and day out work around the council table to shape the communities that we call home. And joining us for today's episode, our 800th episode, is Wheatland County Reeve, Amber Link. The prairie's natural beauty fills the eye in all parts of Wheatland County, from the golden fields near Standard to the badlands of the Northeast to the tranquility of the Bow River near Carseland. Wheatland County is an ideal blend of rural and urban lifestyle, and we could not have asked for a better backdrop than heading out to Wheatland County itself, sitting down in person with Reeve Link for today's episode. Are you passionate about local governance and municipal issues? Do you believe in the power of community-driven conversations? Then join us at the Cross Border Network, where we bring together voices from across Canada to shine a spotlight on the challenges and the triumphs of our municipalities. But we need your support to keep the conversation going. Visit crossborderinterviews.ca today to show your support by backing the show monthly or making a one-time annual donation. Your contribution will help us grow and expand our reach, bringing important stories to even more listeners across the nation. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can amplify the voices of local communities. Together, we can shape a brighter future for all. Cross Border Network, where local matters and your support counts. Visit us today at crossborderinterviews.ca. Reeve, I want to thank you so much for just sitting down with me in person in Wheatland County in your county office. Want to get to know you because you were my 800th guest, my 350th municipal leader on this show. And I've got to ask the same question I've asked every single one of them. Where did your sense of duty to serve your community come from, Amber?
Thanks so much, Chris, and welcome to Wheatland. We're thrilled to have you. I'm going to flip it for 1 second and just ask about your why. So I love Simon Sinek's work around the Golden Circle and what drives people to do what they do. So first, I just want to quickly hear what inspired you to do this work.
I will give you the Coles Note version.
Okay.
I was working for a municipality. I was a reporter. Got sent out here in 2013 because I lost a job with the provincial government back in Ontario. And then I started working for a municipality in 2015 up north in northern Alberta. Started driving back and forth to Calgary. Thought I need something to listen to rather than the same Glee soundtrack over and over again. So I said, let's start listening to podcasts. And I thought, I like talking to people. Why not let's talk to people? It's that serendipitous because we're talking about this the day after I was just released from the hospital. In 2020, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And I lost my job because of that, because my cancer treatments were getting in the way from the municipality standpoint, and I will stand by that to the day I die. And they say, no, you're a contractor and we can fire you whenever you want. That being said, over the last 2 years, I love municipalities and municipal leaders like yourself, and I couldn't find a good outlet to listen to them. So I thought, well, why not me? So in 2023, after doing the show for 3 years, I decided let's rebrand and let's only talk to municipal leaders. And here we are 2.5 years later and sitting in a municipal council office in rural Alberta. And I could not have asked for a better life journey that I've been on for the last 2 years while I was fighting not one, but 3 brain tumors. And here I am. So that's my why.
That's powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
No worries. So what's your why?
So my why probably started like 799 other people you've talked to. I wanted to make a difference. I thought I had a skill set that would potentially be beneficial to Wheatland County. And there was a vacancy in my division, and I decided to run. I had some experience serving on a school board from 1999 to 2007. I love good governance, so I'm kind of a little bit of a geek that way.
What does good governance mean to you?
To me, good governance is when you have individuals who are elected, who are there to represent the people that they were elected by, who recognize the complexity of the work and the different perspectives that will be brought to the table, and then are able to work with that diversity of thought and diversity of perspectives to come to good decision making.
Does it come easy?
No.
Why not?
And I think it's rare.
Really?
I do. I think
in today's age or just in general?
It's maybe exacerbated right now because of some of the polarization that we see at all levels of elected office. But I think it's always been rare and challenging. I think in some governance organizations, it's easier if you have a strong leader, just for everybody to follow that leader and maybe not have the accountability or the really strong debate and strong conversation around decision making. I think now it's even more, people are just more polarized. There's a lot more anger, regardless of how people were impacted over the last 5 years. Everybody has been negatively impacted in the last 5 years, whether it was, due to impacts on their business from restrictions that were in place, or losing a loved one to COVID, or having loved ones affected by addictions. Everybody's been hurt. And so I feel like that just, everybody is still being impacted by that. And
do you find that it's more directed to the municipal level because you are the closest to the people? Because when you go to your grocery store, I'm assuming people know who you are. They will think, there's the Reeve, I can go ask her about this, that, or the other, that provincial jurisdiction, education, healthcare, or even what's going on federally. Do you find that partisanship, that frustration that residents have over the last 5 years have been sort of now focused solely on the municipal leader because you're not in Edmonton, you're not in Ottawa doing your job, you're here 24/7?
In some ways, absolutely. And we do see that. People certainly know where you live. I've had ratepayers actually show up at my house, let themselves in. One had my daughter on her iPad using Find My Friend to show them where I was. I've been out for a walk, and a ratepayer who had some frustrations said, yeah, okay, I'll find you, and literally just drove till they found where I was walking. So there's certainly that proximity and that...
Hold on. I need to go.
I know, it is a little wild.
You dropped that bomb, and then
we certainly had some learning opportunities with our family.
Do you feel safe doing your job?
There's definitely been, so there have been active death threats and like contemplation of police orders to try and maintain safety, but I think people that are threatening to harm somebody are not going to necessarily abide by like an order. And there have been times where my personal safety, I think, has been compromised to a certain extent, and that does impact some of your decision making and how you structure your life.
How do you do that then? Because good governance, good decision making is the key priority for any municipal leader. You've been in this job for some time now, and I can imagine the decisions are not getting easier. They're getting tougher. You're in budget cycle, if you've already passed your budget or getting ready to.
We will be, hopefully on Tuesday.
You are about to probably impact people's lives. How do you make those good decisions knowing that what you just told me would scare the living hell out of me, let alone you still come back into the office the next day and do your job? How do you do that?
So I actually had no intention of sharing that with you, but I'm glad I did, because it is a reality for all elected officials.
You're not the only one that I've heard that from.
Yep. I have several colleagues who have had to take drastic steps because of potential impacts to their personal or family safety.
Councillor in Kenora, Ontario, had her mother and father's home address posted on social media because they didn't like that.
I saw your article.
How do we stop that? And this is not even this. We're going into a completely different area, but I want to get back into this. But I want to follow up that, answer that, and then we'll get back into the original conversation.
Yeah, no, I love it, and it is an important conversation. I think for me, two thoughts. Everything is always on a pendulum, and I think society has swung very far one way. And I do believe we're going to equalize, and people are going to come back to a higher degree of civility. I think we have to lead with civility. So I try to very much debate in council can get very fiery. I try and really just focus on the policies, on the issues, on the decisions that are at hand, and really try and set the emotional piece aside. I do think you have to take some practical steps to ensure your own safety and your family's safety. So we've made changes. based on the work that I do. And I think it's a relatively minor risk, but there is an element of risk. Life is risky.
Yeah.
And then in terms of how you continue to lead, in our family we talk about courage, caution continuum. And I think it's good to find a balance with that. So you need to be pragmatic and take some practical steps to ensure safety, and you need to have courage. And you need to continue to lead. You need to continue to do the right thing, even when it can create challenges, even when your public reputation might be challenged by some people because of the decisions that you're making or the work that you're doing.
Do you enjoy it, though?
There are days that I absolutely love what I do.
And what are those days?
So one of the things that very quickly became part of my why is I was elected in 2017. Quite quickly after that, I realized that 60% of Wheatland County's total tax revenue comes from oil and gas, only 9% from agriculture, even though that's the vast majority of our land. In 2020, during that assessment model review, the Model D would have seen Wheatland County's total revenue be reduced with one stroke of a provincial pen by 19%. That would have had a significant blow to our county. We would have needed to either reduce staff by around 62%, increased mill rates substantially. It would have hit our residents and our businesses in the community either from a service capacity level or from a financial perspective. Around that same time, of course, there were other challenges for people financially and affordability issues that were even really starting then. And so I recognized that we really needed to diversify our tax base and diversify the economy in this region. And our council collectively laser focused on creating an economic development plan and an investment attraction strategy, and really trying to bring in some businesses that would move us beyond agriculture and oil and gas into another realm. And we've had some really good success with that.
Well, just even yesterday, because you were up in Edmonton with Minister Jean, Minister of Energy, and I think there's another one in there. I think it's mine.
MLA Chantal DeYoung was there as well.
Yes. When you see those big wins, does that give you sort of a boost in your step to say, I'm doing this right? Because even if I don't run in 2025, which we're going to talk about in 2 seconds, I can leave Wheatland County better off than I got it.
Absolutely. So that is what lights me up. Days like Wednesday when we got to make the announcement about Rocky Mountain Clean Fuels, that's a plant that is up and running and doing extremely innovative work using our traditional natural resources, but in such a innovative way that it's creating a future for that industry. It's those days when we got to announce de Havilland and CGC. And it's not just the tax base. For me, what really is the motivator for me is the fact that we collectively, and by collectively I mean our council, but also in collaboration with our administrative team, we have changed the trajectory of Wheatland County. And I don't say that lightly.
It's on the map now.
It is. And Wheatland County was a very prosperous, very successful county, but there's been federal and global pressures on the industries that are foundational to who we are, and we have no control over that. And it's going to erode our tax base. It's going to erode the employment opportunities in this region.
So as a municipality, and we're getting into the Wheatland County, and I appreciate that because I think that's where we're going to probably spend most of the conversation. You talk about that federal and worldwide pressures that municipalities are facing. We have one big person who's putting pressure on Canada right now, and that's Donald Trump with the 25% tariff. Yeah. Oil and gas, agriculture, your main sources. That would decimate your community. And I say that respectfully.
Yeah.
Are you concerned that this current federal and provincial government wouldn't be able to get a deal made out, or are you optimistic?
At this point, I am very grateful for the work that our provincial government is doing in terms of trying to address some of the concerns of the incoming administration in the United States, in the hopes that we will be able to mitigate the impacts of those tariffs. Yeah. Even if we could limit some of the sectors or the industries that they're being applied to. So I would say at this point, I am optimistic that we will come to a solution. Alberta has a lot to offer the United States in terms of contributing to their energy security, food security, and we're going to be stronger if we work together as partners.
Looking back as the role of a counselor, and as Reeve, I should say, because that's your position, and that's, I want to make sure people know that when you look at those decisions that you have to make, I see an apathy within this country around municipal issues. And I say that respectfully, knowing that I painted broad strokes doing it. But I would hazard a really good guess that all the money in my pocket against all the money in your pocket, if I went and talked to 100 people in Wheatland County, they wouldn't be able to tell me, A, who their counselors are, or B, what the issues are in front of their community. How do you make decisions when you probably, and I'm going to put words in your mouth, and please correct me if I'm wrong, probably assume that people aren't tuned into what's happening municipally?
I am aware that there is somewhat of an apathy. I think, to the credit of municipal councils for decades, I think that really points to the fact that municipalities have been run relatively well.
Yeah.
And so when things are going well and there are not crises or there's not significant issues, people do tend to take that governance that creates that environment for granted, and that's just human nature. But in Wheatland County, for example, we have 2,700 kilometers of roads. We have the third largest bridge file in the province, which comes with an asset management price tag of $137 million. And so
what's your capital budget?
Around $40 to $50 million, depending on the year.
So if one bridge collapses, you are...
So every year we're addressing critical bridges where if we did not have the financial capacity to either reconstruct or replace those bridges, we would be closing roads, which is going to impact our transportation network, not just for residents, but for agriculture, for oil and gas, for industry, for business. So we need, one of the things I'm very proud of is during our term, we have done a really complete review of our vision and our mission of the county, of our strategic plans, but we're also working on a very comprehensive asset management plan. You've probably heard this multiple times, but Alberta has a $17 billion with a B dollar infrastructure liability. And I think it's easy to look at that as, okay, there's an infrastructure liability, but it's really when you get down to the fact that those are essential services for people, whether it's transportation networks or water systems that do impact people's day-to-day lives. And I think if we see failures, and there are recent examples of that in those systems, the importance of good municipal governance is going to come to the forefront.
Going back to the apathy part of it, though, when you do have to make those decisions, is it trying to get the best information out of residents because they've elected you?
Yeah.
But if they're not tuned in, if they're not engaging with you, then you have to make those decisions. Do you find people being more reactive than proactive when they want something done in the community?
Absolutely. But I also feel like communication is really important, and engagement. Now, I see communication as a two-way responsibility. So as a municipality, we have a responsibility to provide information to people, but they also have really a responsibility to seek information, and preferably to seek information before they're reacting to a question or an issue. And that's a challenge. Another challenge is people politic. And before I was elected, lying was a really foreign thing to me. And during my time on council, I appreciate the experiences I've gone through because they've made me stronger as a person, but they've also made me more cynical. And they've made me realize that not everybody is always focused on, what is actually best for the municipality. Sometimes there's egos that get involved or other motives that are not what is best for the county. So back to your original question, in terms of making decisions, there's always competing principles. It's always more complex than people realize.
So who wins? Do the morals of yourself win, or do the voters win?
I believe if you have strong leaders who are leading, motivated from a place of wanting to do the right thing for the right reasons, that your community is going to win.
Yeah, I like that answer. I really like that answer. So I want to turn to Wheatland County as a whole now because I'm cautious of time, and I'm going to preface it as I always do. So if anyone knows my spiel, just fast forward about 30 seconds. This is a conversation between the Reeve and myself. It's not a motion of council, not a direction of council, not a policy of council. This is her opinion and her opinion alone. It may line up with what's going on at council, but she still needs a majority of people to pass any motion or direction of administration. With that being said, Reeve, in your opinion, as of recording this, for my very last time in 2024, what do you see are the biggest challenges facing Wheatland County today? And we already talked about some, but let's talk about the nitty-gritty.
So I would say there's been some challenges that are outside of our control. Drought over the last few years has been a significant issue for our agricultural producers, and then that has a ripple impact, obviously, throughout the province. We've already referenced that downloading. As a municipality, we're taking on increasing responsibility for services and issues that were historically outside of our jurisdiction. One challenge, I would say one of the challenges Wheatland County specifically is facing is really balancing the development and the interest in investing in Wheatland County with maintaining who we are at our core. So at our core, we are an agricultural municipality, and we always will be. So every day I'm challenged with balancing trying to mitigate agricultural land, like the fragmentation of agricultural land, and still building an economy that will ensure that Wheatland County is sustainable well into the future.
Do you think you're doing a good job doing it?
I do.
How so?
So our council has, for example, the large-scale developments that are coming to Wheatland County are locating in our already established industrial area structure plans. So land that, while it is good agricultural land, was by previous councils earmarked for that industrial development. That can help mitigate that agricultural fragmentation by bringing in diversity to the economy, like manufacturing and specifically aviation. It helps to future-proof that economy and ensure that we're going to have jobs and be able to retain youth. I sincerely hope that our youth will have opportunity here and want to stay and live in Wheatland County and build their lives and their families here.
So you bring up a big concern that I'm hearing a lot from a lot of rural Reeves and rural municipalities. Our kid generations, like the generation 2 generations below mine, I say that respectively, being almost in my 40s.
Well past it's great. You're going to love it.
Oh, yeah. Let me get through the 30s and then I'll be okay with all this gray hair. The generations that are in university right now in college, they're not coming back to rural communities anymore. How do we attract more people to come back to these communities? The doctors, the nurses, the tradespeople, because if they're all going to be sitting in Calgary, that's going to be hurting your municipalities, not 10 years from now, but 20, 30 years from now as well.
So for me, I honestly think it's that thriving economy and having those opportunities for employment. There's other practical considerations. We need good connectivity. We need good education. We need strengthened healthcare, all of those elements. But I think at the core, if people can have excellent high-value employment opportunities that are exciting. And part of what drove me to do this is one night, I have 5 kids, they're all grown, and I was sitting with one of my sons, and he said, Mom, there's really no opportunities in Wheatland County for young people. And I was taken aback, and I started arguing with him, and I said, of course there are. And he's entrepreneurial, and he's now running 2 businesses, but he does not live in Wheatland County. And when I really started to drill down, there's significant opportunities in the agricultural field. But if you're not already an established agricultural producer, that's a very challenging sector to enter. We do have examples in the county of first-generation farmers that have managed to do that successfully, and
that's awesome.
Inspire me. But it's very challenging. One of my sons wanted to be a farmer, but he does not have the financial means to do that. So it really is about creating those employment opportunities in sectors that are exciting, that I believe is the foundation to everything.
So what makes Wheatland County so viable in 2024, but in 2025? Because if I go talk to Jason Snyder, Reeve of Vulcan County, he's going to say the exact same thing. We're a great community that you can invest in. You want to go build your community here. But at the end of the day, if you don't get those businesses to start up in Wheatland County, then all this work is for nothing. So what's the attractiveness of Wheatland County, in your opinion?
So we get asked a lot how we've done what we've done, how we landed de Havilland, how we landed CGC, how, why these we have several investors that we're actively exploring investment in Wheatland County right now, and I hope we have some more announcements coming. People ask why. Some of it honestly is luck. Some of it are things outside of our control. We have lower priced land.
But does council do anything in particular? Because it seems like Wheatland County, every few months, there's another new announcement of another new business coming, starting up, or a new investment in the community.
So we certainly have very consciously done things to attract that investment. I've met with over 150 senior leaders of companies, everything from large multinationals to smaller startups, CEOs, presidents, vice presidents, and I tell our story of Wheatland County. And the story does include things like, good value on your land when you're trying to purchase it, but it's also things like the work ethic that you're going to find in Wheatland County, and folks from Wheatland County that may want to work at their business or at their development. It's things like just the culture that's here, that get her done attitude. I was raised by two entrepreneurs. My dad is a rogue cowboy who started a fireworks company and special effects business when I was a child. And my mom opened, retail businesses. I started working at those when I was probably 8 years old. I was raised with that really, what I would consider to be that Alberta spirit of just get her done. And that, I think, people see that in Wheatland County, and when you have a compelling story to tell, people want to be a part of that. And that applies to all of Alberta.
So you talked about downloading of responsibilities onto the municipalities, and it's a common theme I'm hearing a lot. What particular responsibility have you had to adapt to or look after over the last few years that you wish that the province or the federal government would just pick back up and take it for themselves because it's affecting your bottom line?
I actually genuinely don't really have any complaints about downloading.
Okay.
Obviously, we've had increased costs like policing that do affect our bottom line.
And that's a federal issue, which the municipalities had because you're RCMP, right?
Yes. Through a provincial service agreement.
Through which you got a big check, I'm assuming, or did you get the check because you're not under that 5,000?
So we pay now. So we pay close to $1 million that historically we didn't pay. The province brought that in sort of an escalated over 5 years, an increasing amount. So now we pay a portion of those costs, whereas previously we didn't. I don't necessarily disagree with that.
Okay.
I haven't gotten substantial complaints from my ratepayers about that specific increase. What I think municipalities have to be very cautious about is voluntary downloading and taking on responsibilities for things that are outside our jurisdiction. Now, I do think we should maintain autonomy to do that where it makes sense. So I sit on the provincial RPAP board. We have municipalities all over the province that are partnering and working together to attract healthcare practitioners. Yeah. That makes sense for them. They understand their local dynamics. They're very good at it. They can tell their community story. That costs money. And healthcare has traditionally not been it's not been part of our jurisdiction. My hope is that municipalities will maintain that autonomy, but I think we have to be very cautious in not taking on more responsibility. Seniors housing is a huge threat in the future in terms of costs to municipalities.
Even in rural communities like Wheatland County?
Yeah, so every I think actually all rural municipalities are essentially mandated into a housing management body board.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Okay. Senior housing management. Okay.
Yeah,
Two
we're actually we just actually had a motion passed at our last council meeting and sent a letter to Minister Nixon yesterday around governance and housing boards, because right now, while the rural municipalities typically, because the default formula for funding seniors housing particularly in rural communities, goes to equalized assessment. So rural municipalities pay the lion's share of the deficits that those seniors lodges run, but we don't have the proportional governance for that. So we're requesting a change to that so that the governance is modeled after that financial responsibility.
Do you think Minister Nixon is hearing you?
We just sent the letter. I haven't had an opportunity to chat with him.
That's good to know, so I will end that line of questioning.
Well, I'll also acknowledge that there's competing principles. Yeah. Oftentimes governance follows population. But in this case, I think there is
population too, which hurts rural municipalities.
Yes, in terms of money in, but money out often is the opposite, right? Because it's often driven by that equalized assessment formula.
Yeah.
So,
we talk about challenges, but I can imagine there's some things that you are proud about this community. And I'm just getting the sense after looking at the time here, about 25 minutes into this conversation, you seem to ooze Wheatland County. Like you wear it on your sleeve. Whenever I hear people talk about Amber Link, I always hear she is Wheatland County. What's the thing that you look at and you say, we do have our challenges, but we're doing this right? What is that thing for you?
I love where I live. I love rural Alberta. I think we have so much to offer in terms of quality of life and a lifestyle that is conducive to really good living. What I'm most proud of, I think, is that we have managed to, and people don't necessarily recognize this, but minimize the impacts to affordability in terms of tax increases. Even though your municipal taxes are not necessarily the biggest driver in your budget, it is a line item. I'll share a story. I have a couple of competing emails that sit right in front of me on my desk. One is signed with my eternal ire, so you can imagine the direction that goes in. The other is from a family, and it was a letter from a dad who had emailed after we had made our final tax bylaw decision, and his taxes had come down. And he emailed thanking the county for doing that, and he indicated that he had been anticipating an increase to his taxes because everything was going up. And he said any increase in that municipal, like his property tax bill, was going to be coming out of his grocery budget. And that hit me so hard because for a lot of people, a small increase in your property taxes it's not going to be super meaningful. But for a lot of my ratepayers, it is meaningful.
I'd say for a lot of Canadians right
Yes.
now, like a $10 increase may not sound like a big deal to people who are making six figures or even a little bit more. But $10 to some people, that's like going to the grocery store and buying something.
That's 2 jugs of, well, it's not even 2 jugs of milk anymore. It was
Trust me,
2 jugs. It was 2 jugs of milk when all 4 of my boys were playing football and drinking a jug a day. But now it's not even 2 jugs of milk. But that is huge. And it's not just the impacts of the property tax, it's the cumulative impacts of all of the pressures on our ratepayers. So even though it's not like a big and exciting thing that we go have press conferences on, I think our commitment to fiscal responsibility is the thing one of the things I'm very proud of.
The economic times that we currently live in are being exacerbated by federal and global.
Yeah, absolutely.
We talked about that. But there's one thing that when I talk to rural leaders, and I just talked to Kevin Worstra this week, and we had this conversation about the federal carbon tax.
Yeah.
You talk about farmers.
Yeah.
That is their lifeblood, they're
Yeah.
getting taken out of their pockets. And municipalities like Wheatland County are left holding the bag going, okay, we can't continue to add on. There's only one taxpayer. And if we add that extra $10, looking back over the last 5 years or 8 years since the carbon tax was introduced on your time in council, have those decisions about tax increases, about potential infrastructure projects gotten harder and harder because you understand you have to grow your community, but your people are struggling.
Yes, absolutely. I believe that at all levels of government, we need to be incredibly careful with every dollar that we spend. Yeah. And it is things like the carbon tax. And that goes back to that whole competing principle conversation we have. Do we need to steward our environment? Yes. Like our farmers' lives depend on it. Their livelihoods depend on it. But we also need to be pragmatic.
And I'm assuming they're doing a pretty damn good job doing
it
as
well. They absolutely do. And that is what gets lost, whether it's our energy sector or whether it's our agricultural sector. I think all industry is doing things in an incredibly responsible way, and that does not get recognized. And sectors get painted with a negative brush because of a few bad actors or because of a lens that's applied without knowledge of, why we use fertilizer or, why we optimize things for agriculture.
Yeah. Going back to the accomplishments, looking at 2025 in the future, and you're the first person I get to ask this to, so be excited. What do you hope for 2025 on those accomplishments front? Do you see yourself in Wheatland County growing more, or do you see, because we're officially entering what I like to colloquially call it silly season in this province, and that is election season. So do the issues still move forward, or is everyone going to be focusing on that re-election bid now?
I suspect in our municipality we've had silly season in Wheatland County for the last 3 years. We really have in some issues. But I think we are able to maintain our focus on what really matters. And we have some significant projects that are on the cusp of, really significant advancement. I believe we're going to see that. We're going to see the continued focus on that. We're going to see continued growth. I think you're going to see some further announcements. And you're going to see a continued commitment to cultivating an environment that is conducive to investment. And that is for all those reasons: the employment opportunities, the retaining our youth, the giving people purpose, the mitigating, impacts to mental health and addiction, because we know that when people are employed, they have purpose. And, I can't control a final investment decision of where somebody's going to locate, but we can cultivate an environment that is attractive, which our provincial government does, with our corporate tax rate and that type of thing. But as a municipality, we can as well. We were one of the first rural municipalities to institute a property tax bylaw, a tax incentive. And that's not the driver of a decision, but I think it is very demonstrative to an investor of what the attitude is in our county.
You don't have to say, you can if you want, but nominations open in 2025 for colloquially silly season.
Yeah.
Have you made up your mind? Are you leaning one way or another about putting your name up for reoffer in 2025, or are you still making that decision with your family?
I'm still making that decision. So it's a really interesting time. I've been spending a lot of time reflecting back over the last 7 years, and my time serving both on council and also as Reeve for Wheatland County and with RMA. I love the work that I do, but I'm spending a lot of time just reflecting right now what the future will hold for me. So I haven't made up my mind.
Well, I'll be watching for sure. Now, on right behind you, the people who are watching this review, seeing this, may not be able to see it because of the glare, but your county is quite vast.
Yes.
And it has amazing spots in it.
Yes.
What are some of the great tourism spots in Wheatland County? Because people will drive through here going to Medicine Hat and probably don't even blink on that side. Where should they be stopping in Wheatland County to go see a great tourist spot?
I'm so glad that you asked, because I don't think when you think of Wheatland County, you think of tourism.
Nope.
But you should.
But the municipalities don't think about tourism that often.
Yeah, we have actually. So we did integrate it into our economic development strategy. But I think part of the reason is we do have some gems. So we have Rosebud School of the Arts and Theatre. From your face, I think you maybe haven't been there.
I've never even heard of this.
Okay, you have to come.
And arts and theater is like my go-to. So.
Okay, they have an amazing Christmas show playing right now, so please.
Okay, so next weekend
I will send you a link.
Okay.
So it's Rosebud is a very small hamlet in Wheatland County. Probably about, I should look up the population, maybe around 100 people live in Rosebud. But they have had a theater school, I also should know when it started, for decades. And they have world-class dinner theater. So people travel from, literally I have met people from like across North America that travel to Rosebud to see the shows. And I'm increasingly meeting people that come to I try and see every show that they provide. They also have they have a side stage and a main stage, so you could actually take in 2 shows if you time it right. But honestly, such good theater. It's typically family friendly.
Okay.
It's typically very inspiring. You will leave either feeling incredibly good or having experienced a very thought-provoking, very inspiring experience. And it's magical.
So that's on the list of you before.
Yeah. And you will drive down into this little valley and you'll feel like you're, less so maybe in the winter, but like when I drive in and it's a little bit hazy or misty, it feels like you're driving down into Scotland. I've never been to Scotland. This is what I imagine Scotland is like. But into this valley, and it is pure magic.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. And I would be remiss if I did not ask the stupid tourism question here. Is there a Rosebud motel?
There is not a motel, but there are beautiful bed and breakfasts. And of course, with the dinner theater, you get like an incredibly good dinner. But there are also lovely bed and breakfasts. Okay. So there's also a museum, lots of things to explore in Rosebud. I do want to highlight 2 other things. We also have really good agritourism. So there
Open
are
Farm Days is huge out here.
Yeah, it is. We've had lots of diverse, just engagement with Open Farm Days. There's some year-round sites that you can visit that have some agritourism experiences. And then the other thing I really have to highlight is over towards our hamlet Carseland and Speargrass, we have the Bow River that comes through Wheatland County, and it's world-renowned fly fishing, but also beautiful hiking, and there's a beautiful campground. Just absolutely stunning place to visit if you like nature.
Oh, they're on the map now. I'm going to
Yep.
make sure next summer, because I'm not going fly fishing in the middle.
No, I wouldn't suggest right away. We do have ice fishing opportunities as well, but yeah, the fly
Me
fishing
and
wait for the
fish
summer.
just do not see eye. Where in the community do you go? Because I can imagine this job gets stressful, gets challenging, and you have to make some big decisions. After a long day of council meetings, after a long day of doing what you do in your normal day, where do you go to just decompress and let it all like sort of flow away?
So I have good longevity in my family. Both my grandmother's in her 90s, and she and I hiked the West Coast Trail in 2019. She was 89. We think maybe one of the oldest, most likely the oldest woman to complete the trail. She walks every day.
Okay.
Regardless of the weather. And her mom walked every day, well into her 90s, and lived to be over 100 years old. I also walk almost every day. So there are days if I'm downtown Toronto and in 16 hours of meetings, I may not get my walk in. But I do try and get outside. They say there's no bad weather, only like not adequate clothing, but one day I did have like bruises on my legs from the like pelting hail. So sometimes I think there is bad weather. But yeah, rain or shine, I try and get outside, try and get out for a walk. It is a time to decompress. It's often my husband and I. It's time for us just to connect, just to decompress, but also I do think, especially for everybody, it's really important to take responsibility for our own mental and physical health, and that's one way that I do that.
Okay, I was going to not bring this up, but you've mentioned it a few times. Mental health is a big thing in this world. You talk about some of the challenges that municipalities are facing right now internally, and let's say internally. Who do you lean on? Is it your husband? Is there other municipal leaders that you can lean on to sort of recenter yourself? Because it can be an island sometimes in your job, and your mental health is key priority. And there's burnout that I've seen time and time again. People telling me when they resign from office, they just can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Who do you lean on?
Absolutely, my family. So they're my anchor. My husband and I have worked very hard to make sure that we have a strong relationship and we're always there for each other. My daughter is 19 and has Down syndrome and is my biggest fan. She watches every council meeting. She is my biggest cheerleader. She'll send me 5-minute long like hype girl videos telling me to be strong and that I can do it. And sometimes she can tell from watching a meeting that it was a very fiery, challenging meeting. And she'll say, keep going, you can do this. And, she's very encouraging. And then with my sons too, we have just really deep, thought-provoking conversations. And probably the most gratifying is how much it means to them, the work that we've done in terms of affordability and the fights that I've had to fight for affordability and for employment creation. And to see how much that means to my kids is what keeps me going.
$1 million question to finalize this interview. We talked about yourself, we talked about your job, talked about your county, but we're ending by talking about what makes it unique. What's the thing that makes you say Wheatland County is a great place to live, to work, and to raise a family?
It's going to sound a bit cliche, but our mission statement is where innovation meets tradition. And I think that, and I'm not going to suggest that that isn't the case in other municipalities, but I genuinely believe we are striking a balance in Wheatland County of maintaining who we are at our core, but also bringing in that innovation and diversifying. And I think that is unique, especially in Southern Alberta.
Amber, Reeve, thank you so much. I am so honored that I was able to sit down with you. You've made me actually think about some more questions that I have to start asking people, and I am so honored that you were able to take time out of your busy schedule to sit down and do this interview. And I'm so blessed that Michelle Swanson, Reeve of Clearwater County, said you need to get Amber on the show. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for taking the time to come out to our county, and thank you for the work that you do. I think it's really critical that we raise the profile of what municipal leaders do and how critical good governance is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Cross Border Interviews. This is not just another episode, this is the 800th episode, and I truly appreciate everyone who's taken the time out to listen to me, to tune in and watch me, and to those who have reached out, supported the show, supported me, supported the growth of the Cross Border Network. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of everything that has gone wrong with me over the last few years. Thank you so much. Now, over the next few weeks, we will be off, but we will be back the week of January 13th, 2025, with brand new episodes of Cross Border Interviews. So until January, stay informed, stay engaged, and most importantly, treat people with kindness till dying.